Good morning. We made it through Thanksgiving. Good job. Good job, us. And I think that there are now 23 remaining holidays between now and the end of the year, between all of the major faith traditions. Holy moly, take a breath. You don't have to go to all of them. You can just pick your favorites. And odds are your family and friends have, 5 or 6 different gatherings per holiday, if you're anything like our family, or this spiritual center where we have multiple different holiday events all throughout the month, from about mid-November through the end of December. There's a lot that happens. And if you're anything like me, you might be starting to feel just a little bit overwhelmed by the fullness of the calendar and the list of tasks that seems to pile up as we deepen into November and December. Anybody feeling that? We're just going to keep breathing. If you're not feeling that, you're doing it right, and we seek to be like you. Please guide us in your wise ways. So today's message is titled what my affirmation is all through the holidays, year upon year, and that is, let Spirit do it. Let Spirit do it. Now, you might be looking at me and saying, Reverend Leslie, how's that going to work? Because I've never had God show up and do my Christmas shopping for me or my Hanukkah preparations. We're going to talk about it. How can we let Spirit do it? Now, this is the whole talk is based on one essay that you too can enjoy in Living the Science of Mind. It's called Let God Do It. I prefer the word Spirit. It's Living the Science of Mind, page 23 to 27. So feel free to enjoy that essay if you so choose. But we're gonna break it down and come up with a plan to allow ourselves to soften into the holiday season and frankly anything else that's up by letting Spirit do the hard parts. Does that sound like a good idea? Because here's the thing. I often, and I suspect some of you may also often have this thought, if only I had a personal assistant who already knew everything that I needed to tell them, because half the time we don't hire someone because it would be so much work to get them up to speed that by then we might as well have just done it ourselves. Just do it myself. But what if we could find someone who already knew every kid and niece and nephew and already knew what everybody wanted and already knew exactly where the ornaments go on the tree? There's a wrong place. I know, because my children have found it consistently. And then I'm in there like sneaky rearranging, and they always catch me. See, the challenge is, as I'm admitting, we want to control it. We want it to all be easy. We want it to be done for us, and we want to control it. And do we get to have all those things at the same time? No. So we're going to work together on this idea that we can have that brilliant personal assistant that works in our life to bring us exactly what needs to happen, empowers everything that needs to have happen through us if we let it. If we let it. But if we're going to hold on like this to our plans, is there any room in here for God to get in? Here, in case you guys are missing it. Is there any room in there? We can't have anybody miss that face. When we're holding on like that to the details of how everything needs to go, there's no room for Spirit to get in there and support us and assist us and bring that through us. So let's talk about it, yes? Let's talk about it. Okay. So the first thing that we have to do, if we want Spirit to do the hard parts, is to acknowledge, to recognize that the power of Spirit is already right where we are. Take a breath. Even when we can't see it, even when we can't feel it yet. And Well, Ernest Holmes said it like this. He said, "The great power is always near, ready at any time to help. But we must use it according to its own nature in harmony with its laws. We should learn that we ourselves are the center of this divine activity." The great power is always near, and we are the center of it. So it's going to rise up through us. And the best way that I can think of to explain all of this is to talk about water tables. We've got a chart about water tables. This looks exciting, doesn't it? I hear the engineers, like the three of you going, "Yeah, kind of." Everybody else, stay with us here. Stay with us. So I stole this. Thank you, Environment Canada, for allowing me to borrow this chart that helps to describe what happens with water production at various levels of groundwater. So from a metaphysical perspective, I see two things really interesting going on here. The first one is on the right-hand side, we have the effects of human effort. So through human efforting, we can do quite a lot. We are very clever creatures. We've got very lovely brains. And all on our own, we can go do things like fetch water from the river. Been doing it for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, many years longer than we have the history of. We can, get a bucket and fetch water from the river. And then we got a little cleverer and we created wells where it's nice and deep and you hit that first level of water, and through human effort, by winding up our crank on our well, we pulling up the bucket of water and we get our water from nice and cool, fresh, good water from underneath there, all through human effort. And how long might it take to fill up a nice hot bathtub for Reverend Leslie to enjoy by cranking up the water from the well, right? It's going to take a lot of human effort. It's going to be a long time before Reverend Leslie is in her toasty bubbles. And I'm not the best at waiting. I'm going to go ahead and admit that. My husband in the front row was like, "She's not. It's true." Not her strong point. And then we have on the left side of the chart something very different happening, because I swear I did not make this up. If you go deeper into the ground, into your consciousness, if you go deeper, you reach a level where the resource you seek is so powerful that it propels itself up naturally through whatever opening you give it and pours forth of its own accord. There's nobody cranking that water. You notice how it's bursting forth in the image? It's because it has its own propulsion. It has its own push. That the power that is deep comes up of its own energy and makes itself known. And how it shows up is the surface's opportunity to direct. So in our picture, it's just an open pipe. So poof, the water is pouring forth like a beautiful, opulent propulsion of energy. Which feels more fun? The cranking, the working, the hauling, the carrying, the heating, or the bursting forth naturally of its own energetic propulsion? This is how efforting looks when we go deep. When we go deep, the efforting falls away. It's not needed, because that which comes from the depth of consciousness, which is spirit, is self-powered. My friends out there who are still in the camp of manifestation is manipulation. There you are. There you are. Okay, coming close. Part of this step is to deepen into the idea that allowing spirit to work for us, which is what manifestation is, that it's not a manipulation of energy. It's an allowing of spirit to do what it wants to do anyway. We're not forcing it. In fact, we can't hold it back. It wants to create as us. Going back to Ernest Holmes' words where he said, the great power is always near, ready at any time to help. But we should learn that we ourselves are the center of that divine activity. We have to let it. We have to recognize the power is already here as us. But what if my fountain isn't flowing? What if I have a nice, deep channel all the way down to wherever that spot was on the water table where it gets real full and it's supposed to be bursting forth, and I look at my fountain and my fountain is just dry. It's just nothing, dry. What should I check? What should I check? Well, here's the deal. Maybe the opening to our fountain looks like this. It's hard to get water through there. If there are twigs and leaves and an old bird's nest just kind of shoved in the opening. Anybody ever have a day where they suspect there's an old bird's nest shoved in their opening? Perhaps if you do not feel the energy of the one flowing through you, there's a chance we need to check what's going on there. So, oh my gosh, Reverend Leslie, what are these twigs and birds' nests, and what are you talking about? When we think about our teaching symbol, right? We have our nice round teaching symbol, and at the top we have the ideal, that consciousness that is pure. And in the bottom we have everything that we ever bring forth in our life, everything we manifest. The middle section is all the subjective. Fancy words, the subjective. But what's the subjective? Every memory we've ever had, every story we ever told about why the lady looked at us weird in the line at Starbucks, every TV show we ever watched, things our parents said, things our fourth grade teacher told us that we should be aware of in our life, things that are true and things that are not true, things that used to be true and aren't true anymore, and everything in between, all lives in that middle section. And it is our work as spiritual beings to methodically go through that part of our brain, our consciousness, and pull out anything that doesn't fit for the good of our life. This is what we're doing in all of our spiritual classes. This is what we're doing in Practitioner 1 training right now. It's what we do in our daily substantial spiritual practice. We're pulling out anything that doesn't fit, so that when we call upon the energy of the universe to help us get through a busy week, a shopping list, staying calm in the presence of extended family, whatever it is that might feel like a challenge that day, that it's cleared out enough that the water can come through, that our consciousness is cleared out enough that the positive energy can come through us naturally and not be bumping into all these things in the way. Because, my friends, if spirit isn't showing up for us, one of two things is happening. Either it is showing up for us and we are blocking it through not having done our work, and so we can't feel the power as fully as we would otherwise, or it is showing up for us and we are not recognizing it and allowing it through. You notice what I didn't say? There wasn't an option where spirit just didn't show up for us. That's not the way it works. See, we here in Science of Mind and in New Thought, we share a philosophy about a spirit that can only show up, can only be a yes for that which we call forth. But we have to call it to feel its presence in our life. Now, we have this silly thing we do. I have the silly thing I do, and you might be joining me in the silly thing. And that is where, when it's ooey gooey, it's easy to feel spirit in that. When it's about feelings, or it's about relationships, or it's about vibes. It's really easy to know spirit in that, right? And then we get into the concrete stuff. And I hear this really often on the inside of me and on the outside of me from y'all. And it's, well, that's all great and good until I have a shopping list. And when it gets really concrete, it's a little bit harder to trust, isn't it? It's a little bit harder to lean in. And so it's an invitation for us. The parts that feel less simple, the parts that feel less direct. What if we decided to go all the way in? What if we decided to play with this word science that's in our name, science of mind, and test it? To go all the way in, to allow spirit to work through us, through these parts that we have a harder time trusting, and see what happens. Most of the interesting growth that I've experienced personally through Science of Mind has shown up beginning with me saying in probably kind of a snarky, snotty voice, fine, let's test it. Let's see if it works. I just tested tithing. If you've ever heard me talk about tithing, you know that it really, really worked for me, and I'm a bit obsessive about it. I just tested the releasing prayers and the fear to faith process, and if you've ever done a healing service with me, you know that it really, really worked for me, and now I'm rather obsessive about it. It turns out when we just test things and we go all the way in, we get to find out what really works for us. So that's one of the invitations in this message. Go all the way in. Decide, I'm going to pray before every fill in the blank. You know, we like to pray in a meeting. We open up our meeting with a prayer. We often will do a prayer if we think we're going to have a challenging conversation. What if we decided to pray in everything? Here I am, sitting in my car, ready to do grocery shopping. Infinite Spirit is right where I am, and I know that it is showing up as me in this shopping trip. It is showing up as everything that I need, ready, easy to find, not mysteriously rearranged. In the aisle, I think it's going to be on sale, and it's going to practically leap into my basket. There will be no lines, everyone's friendly, and I will spend less than I thought and get more than I needed. And so it is. What if we did that? My voice teacher, Dawn Curlin, who a lot of us know because she's a partner here, often has told me, breathe more than you think you need to, and it works for prayer to pray more than you think you need to. What, are you worried about losing the 15 seconds? I mean, I prayed for less than 30 seconds right there. Pray more than you think you need to. Test it. What if it works? What if a year from now, you're the one saying, I tried it and it really worked for me, and now I'm totally obsessed with it? It might be. I am one of you, was one of you. Perhaps 5 years from now, you're up here saying, I tested it, and I tested it over and over again, and it worked, and it worked, and it worked, and now I'm a minister. It could happen. It's happened to people in this room. If there's any part of you that is still feeling like, but I need my old bird's nest that's shoved in my pipe. It's what happened, that story that I'm calling my old bird's nest. If I let go of it, what will happen to me? Will I continue to exist if I don't have the bird's nest to anchor the story of my life? We call that arguing for our limitations. If there's any part of you that's thinking, oh, I tried praying more and nothing happened, so I tried it in 1987. It didn't work that week, so forget it. Arguing for your limitations. You're allowed to do it. You're allowed to do it. But in Science of Mind, there's one thing that comes up again and again, and it's that whatever you claim, whatever you cling to, whatever you own, you get to be right. So if you want to keep your bird's nest, we're not going to tell you you can't. But you could lay it down and have a whole lot more if you choose. If you choose. See, it's about allowing the goodness to flow. Ernest says, if we find anything in our thinking that denies life, let us clear it away. We can stop being afraid if we want to. We can stop having resentments. We can at once stop all unkindness, winnow out every doubt, and gain faith through the simple practice of learning to believe. It's a choice. We think that belief is something that happens to us. That belief is an effect, but it's not. It's a behavior. It's a choice. It's a thing we do. When we choose to test that which we have been told will work for us, could work for us, we're choosing to lean in. When we choose to pray more than we need to, which I'm using air quotes because I am convinced that there's no such thing, but more than we think we need to. We get to find out what life looks like when we allow the magic to show up for us, self-powered from the depths. It makes its way through us and everything becomes easier. Everything becomes easier. So to set our tone for allowingness, I brought a piece of one of our meditations, and I invite everyone to just close our eyes or soften our gaze, whatever feels the most delightful, and allow this to find just the right spot in our hearts. It says, say to yourself, I will express joy today. I will be happy. I will bring gladness and enthusiasm into every experience of my life. And I will maintain a quiet confidence and peace and a sense of serenity. And I will be glad for the achievement of others and rejoice in their successes. I would add, I will choose to allow Spirit to do all of the hard parts. And as we bring our consciousness back in together, this is the invitation for the holiday season and beyond. To choose to let that power operate through you so that everything is made easier. To allow the good to work through us individually and collectively as a place where we know Spirit shows up for the benefit of ourselves and for everyone we touch. Are we in? Beautiful, and so it is. And so let us anchor that with some prayer. How good it is to know that there is one power, one presence, one life that we call Sweet Spirit. The one infinite reality that is active in, through, and as all life, as everyone and everything, as every unfoldment, as huge as mountains erupting and as tiny as my stocking stuffer list, and everything in between. What I know is that Spirit is present as everyone within the sound of my voice, as each one of us go about our lives, that there is this divine impetus working in and through and as everyone and everything to cause all to unfold for the very highest and best. And as we choose to let go of our need to control and direct every tiny thing, in comes that power and presence moving everything rightly for divine right outcome, for the good of all beings. And so I know any cause, any concern, any desire that's on the heart of anyone within the sound of my voice, that it is already being worked upon by that power that says yes to the good, and yes to the peace, and yes to the happiness, and yes to the abundance for each one of us and for life as a whole. I'm so grateful to know this truth and to claim it together as we say, and so it is.